When the government shuts down, it's usually framed as political drama. Cable news calls it a standoff. Congress calls it negotiation. But for millions of Americans, it's not politics. It's dinner. Because one of the first programs to hit the chopping block during a shutdown is the one that helps people eat, SNAP, better known as food stamps. Every time Washington, D.C. decides to pause the government, 40 million Americans are left wondering whether they'll still be able to buy groceries next month. Today, we'll explore how systems that are supposed to work somehow always forget who they're supposed to work for. SNAP. SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Supplemental because it's not meant to cover everything, just enough to keep you from starving. It's one of the most effective anti-poverty programs in U.S. history. It's efficient, digital, and simple. EBT cards instead of paper coupons. And who uses it? Not who you think. Most SNAP recipients are working people, cashiers, home health aides, warehouse workers. About half are children. Many others are elderly, disabled, or veterans. In other words, people who did everything society told them to do, and yet they still need help to eat. But sure, let's make this the controversial program. When the government shuts down, it doesn't just close museums and delay passports. It freezes the money that funds food stamps. Here's how it works. SNAP is funded month to month by the USDA. When Congress can't agree on a budget, that funding authority runs out. If the shutdown lasts long enough, states literally run out of money to load EBT cards. Imagine waking up, swiping your food card, and it just says declined. Not because of fraud, not because you did anything wrong, just because Congress had an argument. That's not fiscal discipline. That's financial hostage taking. And it's not just individuals, grocery stores, farmers, and local economies all take this hit. SNAP spending circulates back to small town America faster than almost any other program. When it stops, entire communities feel it. So technically, the government shutdown doesn't just stop working, it stops eating. Here's where it gets absurd. SNAP is tied to something called a farm bill, the same law that funds agricultural subsidies. That means every time Congress debates whether poor families deserve food, it's part of the same bill that sends billions to industrial agriculture. We subsidize corn syrup, but argue over baby formula. We pay farmers not to grow crops, but tell working moms to find personal responsibility. SNAP has become a permanent bargaining chip. Every few years, someone demands work requirements for food aid, as if hunger were a motivational problem, because nothing inspires productivity quite like starvation. And yet SNAP fraud rates are incredibly low, less than 1%. You're statistically more likely to be struck by lightning than to see someone cheating the food stamp system. But that doesn't matter, because food stamps make great television. They're simple, emotional, and easily to talk about when you talk about morals, unlike tax breaks or lobbying loopholes. Apparently, empathy is easier to cut than the defense budget. Every government shutdown has a body count you'll never see. Not in hospitals, but in empty refrigerators. During the 2018-2019 shutdown, the USDA had to pay February SNAP benefits early just to keep families from going hungry. Then people had to stretch that money for 6 weeks with no idea when the next payment would come. Parents skipped meals so kids could eat. Elderly people rationed medication and groceries. Food banks saw lines wrap around the block. These aren't people looking for a handout. They're stuck in a country that treats survival like a political privilege. And if you've ever heard someone say, just get a better job, remember, most SNAP benefits and recipients have one. They're feeding families on wages that don't match rent, let alone the cost of living. Shutdowns don't just expose political dysfunction, they expose how fragile our normal already is. We call programs like SNAP safety nets, but a real safety net catches you when you fall. Ours has holes big enough to fall through while Congress debates whether you deserve to land. Shutdowns show us the truth. The government doesn't really shut down. The parts that protect power, they stay open. The parts that protect people, they close first. We've built a system where feeding people is a budget item, but tax cuts are a moral imperative. Where the poor are audited, but corporations, they get forgiveness. Where hunger is seen as personal failure, not a policy choice. So maybe the real shutdown isn't in Washington. Maybe it's in the American citizens. We've decided to make food a political point. We have decided that people, if they get food stamps or TANF or any other benefits from the government, we're better than they are. I used food stamps in my family when we first started out. We had 3 kids. We had no money. I was working, but we couldn't feed all the kids we had. Now, people will say, you shouldn't have had kids. I shouldn't have had that many kids. I love my children, but you're probably right. I didn't pull myself up from my bootstraps. I worked really hard. My wife went to school. She has a degree. She works really hard. We don't need them now. I would rather pay taxes for food stamps and Medicaid and Medicare than pay taxes for other things that we're funding in our government. I think a lot of people would love to have a choice where their money goes to when they give money to the government, because the government is still collecting our tax dollars. They're closed, but they're still taking their money. Food stamps. We wouldn't need food stamps if our country had a system where people could afford to live. If you have to work 2 jobs and have a roommate to be able to afford an apartment and eat, there's a problem. If you have to have your parents take out a loan against their house so you can go to college, there's a problem. If you have to sell plasma to feed your family or yourself, there's a problem. We're in a world right now where it is more important to have the newest iPhone than it is to worry about someone on the street who has nothing to eat. Now, there is fraud in food stamps. You see it all the time online. And these are the people that make everyone else so angry about food stamps. Why? Because they have 7 babies from 7 baby daddies and they get $3,000 a month in food stamps. The average household gets $187 a month in food stamps. The average household has at least 1 working person in it. 21% of the people who get food stamps have full-time jobs. 21%. 27% of people who get food stamps are elderly and or disabled, physically disabled from accidents or something like that. 20% are veterans or military personnel who, lo and behold, the government doesn't take care of them either. Then there's the outliers. There's a small percentage of people who are habitual offenders. There's about 12% of people who have SNAP benefits, food stamps, TANF, and Section 8. Basically the trifecta. They have no money coming in at all. All their money is government assistance. It's a small percentage, but those small percentages are what people see. They see it because those are the people who flaunt it. They make it hard for everybody else who's using it. I never liked using food stamps. I probably bought the wrong things on food stamps. I bought soda, I bought Kool-Aid, I bought everything. I didn't know any better. I was young and stupid. I don't buy that stuff now. And if I had food stamps, I probably wouldn't buy that stuff now because I know better. I know what's good for me. I know what can last longer. But when you first get into the system, you don't know how it works. That doesn't make me a bad guy. It doesn't make people who use them bad. What it does is it makes us who are, real wage earners and make real money. We have two options. We can either look at these people like people who need a hand up. They need a life raft. Or we can look at them like we're better than they are. I'd rather do the first than the second. As somebody who came home from deployment, got out of the military, and I couldn't get a job for a while because mentally I couldn't do it. I was struggling. The government helped. Not a lot, not as much as I needed, but they helped. And that's what food stamps and TANF are about. That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be a helping hand. Not a permanent helping hand for most, but a helping hand. And while there are bad apples, we need to stop judging everybody by the actions of 1 or 2 percentage points of people. 40% of Americans, not 40%, it's 42 million people. So it's like 10%, a little under 10% of Americans are on food stamps. Okay, 10%. 20% of those 40 million are working full-time jobs. Okay, 20%. So that's 8 million people are working every day trying to support their families, and they just don't make enough. Another percentage point, another millions are working part-time jobs, are trying. They're just not getting it. We need to stop judging because we might be those people someday. It doesn't take a lot for Bitcoin to crash or Apple to crash or us to lose our 401ks or lose all of our jobs and the economy to tank, and we're all going to be there. If the Great Depression didn't teach us anything, it should teach us this. Very few survived the Great Depression with the wealth that they had. The few that survived would survive no matter what. The large percentage of people were on the street selling apples, trying to feed their families. And that's who we should care about. We should care about them because, like it or not, we could be them. With 40 million people about to lose their food stamps, we should look in the mirror and say, how did we get to this point? What can we do to fix it? I think the only option, the best option, reopen the government. And then everyone who is in that government right now, start over. Start over, all over again. Just change the dynamic. Because our people are hungry. Our people are hungry for food. Our people are hungry for morality. And our people are hungry for justice. Because we should not have to kowtow to politicians who don't care about us. Because trust me, all of them are eating, and eating very well. Till next time.